The film opens by introducing Davis, a young teenager who is enjoying time with his girlfriend. Shortly after, we discover that Davis has been arrested for drug possession with the intent to sell. In the following scene, another character named Angel is introduced, who has been arrested for assault and car theft. Finally, the main character, Butch, appears, engaged in an argument with an agent. After being slapped by the agent a few times, Butch loses his temper and attacks him, leading to his arrest for assaulting the agent. Davis, Angel, and Butch are then sentenced to a juvenile correctional facility in Montana. Upon arrival, they are subjected to a procedure where they are ordered to bend over and cough loudly as officers check them for any concealed weapons or other contraband. Following that, they are instructed to remove their personal clothing. Davis, a 16-year-old, was specifically arrested for possession of marijuana. Angel, the youngest of the group, is only 15 years old. Butch, at 17, had been transferred from another facility after his assault on the agent earlier in the film. After undergoing a thorough search, the staff provides the boys with prison uniforms. Superintendent Sands then gives the new inmates an orientation, explaining the rules and security protocols of the facility. He makes it clear that weapons, knives, illegal substances, and pornography are prohibited, and forming gangs within the institution will lead to severe punishment. He advises them to reach out to their unit supervisor, Goodyear, if they have any concerns or questions. Goodyear is known to be strict but fair. Goodyear takes the boys to the dormitory and assigns them beds, explaining the various levels of detainees and the uniforms that signify each level. He points out that the color and style of the uniforms indicate a detainee's status. Every detainee starts at the first level, and their behavior is monitored throughout their stay. If they show improvement, they are promoted to the next level. Inmates at the higher level wear black pants and polo shirts, signifying that they have learned from their past mistakes and are on the path to reintegrating into society. Those who demonstrate leadership skills can even take on administrative roles within the institution. Conversely, inmates who misbehave or engage in dangerous activities are demoted and wear orange clothing, marking them as troublemakers. During Goodyear's speech, Butch yawns, prompting Goodyear to warn him that he has read his file and that he should pay closer attention. In the next scene, Butch is in the basement waiting to be served dinner. His first day does not go smoothly, as an inmate named Banks pours hot food on his thumb. Banks, despite being a higher-level inmate, is also one of the most feared individuals in the facility. Whether intentional or not, Banks seems to be asserting his dominance over the new arrival. Although visibly angry, Butch keeps his composure and goes to sit with another inmate in an orange jumpsuit. Max. Max is a witty, sharp-tongued individual whose rebellious nature constantly frustrates the authorities. He advises Butch to ignore Banks, suggesting that doing so will keep him out of trouble. After they finish their meal, Max shows little interest in getting to know Butch and leaves. The first day and night pass without further incidents. The following morning, Goodyear enters the dormitory to wake everyone up, marking the start of their second day. The day begins with cleaning the facility's floors. After Goodyear calls Angel away, Banks and his gang, Looney and Eckersley, approach Davis. Banks starts to bully Davis, initially pretending to be friendly before noticing Davis's shoes. He asks about Davis's shoe size and eventually intimidates him into giving up his boots. Banks swaps his worn-out footwear with Davis's new boots. Frustrated but powerless, Davis puts on Banks's old shoes. Meanwhile, Butch, who is cleaning floors in another area, falls asleep. Goodyear wakes him up and orders him to continue working. Soon after, Banks and his gang approach Butch, taunting him by spitting on him and the floors he had just cleaned. The gesture irritates Butch, but Goodyear calls him back and tells him to keep working. Banks and his cronies leave, and Butch resumes working as if nothing had happened. In the following scene, Banks hands a bag of illegal substances to an inmate named Shadow. That night, unlike the previous night, things take a darker turn. Banks, Eckersley, and Looney wake up and sneak over to Butch's bed. They cover his mouth and beat him. While Banks punches him in the stomach, another guy goes for Butch's face, but Banks stops him, reminding him not to hit the face to avoid leaving visible evidence. The next morning, the guards wake up the inmates as usual and inspect their beds. One guard is displeased with how Angel made his bed and Angel's disrespectful attitude escalates the situation. However, Angel quickly fixes the bed properly when the guard threatens him with solitary confinement. Later, Goodyear releases the other teens, but keeps Butch behind due to the wound on his face. Goodyear questions him about his injured eye, but Butch lies, claiming that he slipped and fell during the night. Goodyear clearly doesn't believe him and threatens solitary confinement, but Butch sticks to his story. Later, while Butch is brushing his teeth, Banks walks by and lightly bumps him with his shoulder. Butch's eyes burn with anger, showing a growing inner conflict. On one hand, Butch wants to follow the institution's rules so he can be released as soon as possible. On the other hand, he desperately wants to stand up to the bullies, both for himself and for the weaker inmates. In later scenes, the inmates are taken outside for work, but Max is preoccupied, gazing longingly at nature, missing his freedom. Butch is then called to Sands' office, but once again, he insists that he simply fell. Frustrated, Sands orders him to solitary confinement. In a later scene, Max enters the institution's classroom and recites a love poem to the psychologist. She assumes the poem is directed at her and kicks Max out of the class. Later on, Banks and his gang lure Davis into trying narcotics. Davis, not wanting to appear weak, snorts the powder and collapses onto the bed. The bullies take advantage of the situation, drawing on his face and playing mind games with him. Davis becomes paranoid and starts screaming, causing Banks and his cronies to flee before they can be caught. Shortly after, Davis, barely able to stand, crawls into the hallway where Goodyear finds him. Goodyear takes him to the bathroom, places him in a cold shower, and gives him salt water to drink. He then forces Davis to vomit out the substances. Like Butch, Davis is sent to solitary confinement, with Goodyear advising him to drink plenty of water. In later scenes, it is revealed that the inmates have discovered a way to smuggle drugs into the institution. Meekin, a second-level inmate tasked with collecting trash during visitations, uses this opportunity to secretly bring contraband items to other inmates. In one scene, he is shown giving Banks a bag of pills. After about 48 hours, Butch, Davis, and Angel are finally released from solitary confinement. Now Butch is merely waiting for the right moment to take revenge on Banks and his gang. One day, Looney and Eckersley are playing table tennis and try to provoke Davis, who is watching television. After being struck on the head, Davis angrily stands up and approaches Looney. At that moment, Angel quickly hides the security camera, and Butch storms into the room. He walks swiftly toward Looney and knocks him out with brutal punches to the face. Butch then turns to Eckersley, demanding to know where Banks is. Butch and Davis rush to the bathroom in search of Banks, with Butch grabbing a metal cup on the way. When they arrive, Butch orders Davis to stand guard. Butch then enters the restroom and mercilessly beats Banks with the cup. Later, Davis enters the bathroom and quickly retrieves his boots from Banks. Immediately after, the guards discover the bullies injured, and Goodyear confronts Butch, reprimanding him for what he's done. However, since the bullies haven't reported anything, Goodyear is unable to officially punish Butch. Despite this, Goodyear aggressively pushes him a couple of times, but Butch, although filled with anger, manages to hold himself back from retaliating. Meanwhile, Davis's mother visits and informs him of her intent to sue the institution. Davis, however, tells her not to, as he fears that if the other inmates find out, they will torment him even more. After the incident with Banks, Butch, Davis, and Angel enjoy a period of peace within the institution. They share stories of their past and joke around as if nothing happened. However, an inmate named Shadow wants Butch to join his gang. Shadow sees Butch as an asset to strengthen his group, but Butch despises the circulation of drugs within the facility. In fact, after a group session with the psychologist, Butch seeks out Meekin, the inmate responsible for bringing drugs into the center. Butch finds him and takes the pills that Meekin was supposed to deliver to Shadow. As time passes, the new inmates start adjusting to life in the institution and growing closer. Davis entertains the group by sharing a story about having fun with his girlfriend's attractive mother, amusing the other teens. The boys also vent their frustrations through sports, and Davis earns some respect among the inmates after winning a game of dodgeball. One day, while Butch and his friends are in the laundry room, they talk about their families and what they plan to do after their release. Shortly after, Goodyear arrives and takes Butch to the warden's office. Butch is informed that authorities have been investigating the officer he assaulted earlier. It turns out that the officer had physically abused many teenage inmates, and as a result, Butch's actions are being considered self-defense. Butch is told that if he behaves for the next week, he might be released. Later in the dining hall, Hamill, one of Shadow's men, attacks Meekin, cutting his cheek. Apparently, Shadow had ordered this punishment for Meekin's failure to deliver the pills. The guards then search the dormitories, but they find nothing, and none of the inmates speak up. Later, Butch confronts Shadow and chokes him with a cloth before pushing him to the floor. Butch warns him never to mistreat Meekin like that again and throws Shadow's pills on the ground before walking away. In a subsequent scene, Goodyear asks Sands for time off to attend his daughter's birthday party. However, Sands denies the request, citing the recent increase in assaults as a reason why Goodyear cannot leave his post as unit supervisor. Disheartened, Goodyear calls his wife to explain why he won't be able to attend the party. Meanwhile, Angel draws a naked woman on the wall during a routine painting job. Already furious from his conversation with his wife, Goodyear loses control, grabs Angel, and slams him against the wall. Angel hits his head and loses consciousness, with blood soon flowing from the back of his head. Butch, discovering Angel's condition, alerts the guards and Sands quickly arrives on the scene. Goodyear is asked to explain what happened, but he remains silent. Butch, who witnessed the incident, lashes out at Goodyear for not taking responsibility. As a result, Butch is sent back to solitary confinement while an investigation is conducted. While Butch is in solitary, Looney and Eckersley seize the opportunity to exact revenge on Davis. They corner him in the laundry room, and their attack turns brutal. In addition to physical abuse, Looney sexually assaults Davis. Eventually, Butch is released from solitary and meets Davis in the dining room. Before Davis can explain what happened, Butch tells him that he is on track to be released soon. Realizing that if he tells Butch about the assault, Butch will likely kill Looney, Davis decides not to mention it. That night, Davis struggles to sleep. Desperate, he activates the alarm and asks the guard if he can call his mother. Since it is only 3 a.m., the guard refuses, telling Davis to wait until morning. Desperate for help, Davis continues to sound the alarm, frustrating the guards who eventually shut it off. Feeling helpless and humiliated, Davis goes back to bed, his situation sinking in. The next morning, Davis is found dead, having taken his own life. His body is later discovered by the guards, sending shockwaves throughout the institution. In the dining room, a heavy silence hangs over the inmates as they process the news. Suddenly, one inmate shouts, "Dead!" and the rest of the teenagers join in, chanting the word in unison. Amidst the chaos, Butch glares furiously at Looney, who appears visibly nervous. At one point, Butch snaps, hurling a chair against the wall, triggering a full-scale rebellion. The situation quickly spirals into a violent riot between the inmates and the guards. In the midst of the brawl, Butch savagely attacks Looney in a blind rage. Even with shields and batons, the guards struggle to contain the violence. Sands orders the dining room to be barricaded and calls in the special squad. The guards resort to using smoke grenades and rubber bullets to regain control. Amid the chaos, Max tears down a flimsy partition in the kitchen, creating an opening to the garbage room. Max encourages Butch to escape with him, but Butch declines. After several attempts, Butch manages to force open the exit door and steps outside, savoring a brief moment of freedom with a smile on his face. However, his escape is short-lived. The guards quickly capture him and beat him severely, with one guard even breaking Butch's ankle. As Butch screams in pain, they drag him back into the institution. The film ends with Butch's hopes of freedom shattered, his release now further away than ever.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.